Hello everyone, this is Tim, and as you can tell by the title of this video, it's a little provocative. Save or die, motherfucker. And I chose that for a reason. I seem to fall into what some would consider a killer GM, depending on your definition. And I think the reason that is that I am more of a simulationist than some other people are out there. Some people like to focus more on the story. Some people like to focus more on the mechanics, and some people like to, you know, focus on what they think should happen, what's realistic. And in my mind, death is a realistic response to any form of danger and or combat, and sometimes intrigue as well. Maybe you drink a bottle of wine that you got from a quote unquote friend that wants to see you dead. That might kill your character. If you go into a dungeon where people don't want you there and they set traps to kill you, makes sense to me that if you don't see a trap, it might kill you. So all of these things that we've been talking about, people do want a meaningful death as players for the most part. But I think there's a portion out there like me who may be a bit sadist or masochistic where I don't mind if my character dies via trap or combat or really anything else that makes sense within the setting. If you piss some people off and 4 sessions down the road they send an assassin to kill you, I think that's a reasonable response to your actions as a player, as a character. Death should be on the table. Like so many people have said, without death being a possible option, people play unrealistically. They put themselves too much in danger. They fight when they could talk. They fight when they could walk away. And as I've said before, walking or running away should be an option. And if you're trying to get in the mode of an actual character in the setting, you really shouldn't be thinking about, okay, their challenge rating should be equal to ours, therefore we should be able to fight them and lose 1/4 of our resources as a group. You can play that way, that's fine, but I think I tend to play more in the just, you really don't know who you're facing. You don't know what you're up against unless you do research. So, as a player, death, I think, should be an option, and I would have no problem dying to a trap if I knew we were going into a dungeon, if I knew we were going into a dangerous place. I would have no problem with all these various forms of death that can happen in a campaign. I like that danger. My life is boring. It doesn't have very much danger at all. There have been times when it was filled with danger, and those times were scary and exciting. And I think that any good RPG campaign could have those. If your group and you as a GM prefer to focus more on the story and you want a meaningful death for your characters, that's fine, but what you're going to have to do is fudge dice rolls. You're going to have to ignore dice at times when the rules say you should roll them. Things like that. So I tend to be more of a roll the dice, and whatever the results give you, you go by those results. If you don't want a random roll, if you don't want a random thing to happen in your campaign, try not to roll the dice as much. If you want to give them information, just give it to them. There are even times, and this might piss some people off, but there are times when characters are just going to die even without a saving throw. If you jump out of an airplane at 50,000 feet, I'm sorry, a saving throw ain't going to cut it. You're dead. If you fall off a giant cliff and land on sharp rocks at the bottom, it's almost 100% surety that you're dead. So a lot of these problems that come about with death, I think, really come down to player ability and bad choices as a player and or character. You really need to think about what you're doing as a player, as a character, especially if you're playing in dangerous environments, going up against dangerous foes. People think that planning is bad. Oh, we're doing too much planning. It's getting too boring or whatever. But without enough planning, you can go into a situation where your character can get killed, and you need to think about that. if you're a player that never thinks, my character might die if I do this dangerous thing, then I think you're playing unrealistically. And I guess we're playing D&D, and that's that kind of game. There's less realism. You have dragons and magic users. So again, this really comes down to your perspective, your way of wanting to play. But at my table, I really try only to roll the dice when I have to. If it shows up that you're dead, I will go with those results. Sometimes I myself even feel a little bit squeamish, like, oh man, I feel kind of bad, but that's what happened. That's what was the result of those dice. And recently, there was a situation where, in my Lamentations of the Flame Princess game, they saw big plumes of smoke and fire shooting out of the side of the cliff face, out of the cave entrance on the side of the cliff. They climbed down in front of the cave, and I don't know if I didn't describe it well or not, but they were basically standing right in the way of that flame. So the flame shot right at them, and I killed one character. He tried to duck out of the way by holding on to the edge of the cliff. He went unconscious, fell to his death. I almost killed another character just from the damage. And even in that situation, I guess I gave 2 rolls. I gave a saving throw, and then just to kind of give them a little bit of an edge maybe, I said, okay, let's roll initiative. If you guys win initiative, I'll lessen the damage from the flames. So even then, I was a bit softer than I probably should have been. There was, their choice was to go down that cliff and stand in front of the flames. So, depending on how you look at it, that saving throw maybe should have been the only roll they made. But, I'm not always as tough as I make myself out to be, though. I don't think I am very tough. I have characters die as a result of minions, traps, and other things that happen in the campaign setting, if it makes sense. And I think, I don't know, that's just the way I do it. You might completely disagree. I've already heard several people say that characters should only die a meaningful death. That if they die to a minion, that's not fun, that's not what they enjoy, it's not heroic. But I think when I go with my games, I'm not necessarily going for heroism. They tend to be adventurers who are out for themselves. But I run all kinds of different settings and games, so this is mainly just for D&D fantasy. D&D type fantasy. Well, I think that's pretty much it. I'm okay if I'm in one of your games, if you, as the GM, tell me that my character is dead as a result of my character's choices and actions. That's pretty much it. Thanks for listening.